Arg. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my latest live stream. Isn't this exciting? The BC Coroners service is making an announcement in about 5 minutes. If you hear that music in the background, that is just the hold music because I'm on hold on my phone because my cell phone is being used to live stream this. At some point in time, I will get an actual camera or use I have a couple old phones that I can use, but I keep forgetting to grab them. Anyways, the announcement is, according to the BC Coroner Service, is that Dr. Taj Baidwan, BC's chief coroner, will be making an announcement about the tragic events that occurred in Tumbler Ridge on February 10th, 2026. So that's kind of the what's happening. Before we get to the live stream, I wanted to make a couple quick announcements about what's been happening in town. I am going to try to start doing these things you need to know. Things you need to know about things that are happening in Tumbler Ridge. So here we go. Daylight savings time change. Yesterday, Premier David Eby announced that this will be the last time you get to ask, do we leap forward or fall back? Or do we fall forward and leap back before realizing that you live in Tumbler Ridge and don't have to worry about it anyways? The first year we moved to Tumbler Ridge, I convinced my wife to show up to work an hour early. That only works once. Number two, Abel Jr. Returned to Zambia a couple of days, and yesterday he was buried in Kitwe province. There. Number three, the federal Conservatives, most notably Bob Zimmer, have joined the provincial Conservatives in calling for an inquiry into the shooting that happened here in Tumbler Ridge. The Premier says this will happen, but needs to wait until after the RCMP investigation is done. Let's see, what else? The trades trailer should be arriving today. There's a story in the latest paper and should be showing up online in the next day or two. But basically, the Nicola Valley Institute of Technology is lending us their trades trailer for kids to learn woodworking, shop welding, those sort of things. There was some debate about how that would happen. Well, that's how it's going to happen. Yeah, it's a really pretty trailer. I had a picture of it in the paper, but ran out of space, and so killed the picture, but left the story. Council is planning on entering into a service agreement with the Northeast BC Community Foundation to administer the monetary donations that were received or will be received by the District of Tumbler Ridge on behalf of the community in relation to the incident on February 10th. And to negotiate terms of the fee structure. More on that later, once I figure out what that means. I'll get back to this, but it sounds like we're starting with the live stream.
After his remarks, anyone joining us by phone who has a question.
Oh, so it's just the announcement for the media. So let me
invite the chief coroner to the podium to share his remarks.
Okay.
Good morning, and thank you.
So we're out of sync. The live stream has yet to begin online, but I'm going to switch over to that window.
As you all know, February 10th, 2022 was a dark day, not just for us, but for all of Canada. 9 just children lost their lives in a senseless act of violence in a small town called Tumbler Ridge.
Star 1 to enter the queue.
The community has
With that
been
being
left
said,
reeling
I would
as
like to
families
invite
have
the chief
been
coroner to the
devastated by
podium
what
to
is
share
now
his
one of the
remarks.
deadliest mass shootings in Canadian
Thanks, Holly. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Esquimalt and the Songhees First Nations. As you all know, February the 10th, 2026, marked a dark day, not just for us in British Columbia, but for all of Canada. 9 people, 6 of them just children, lost their lives in a senseless act of violence in a small town called Tumbler Ridge. A community has been left reeling and families have been devastated by what is now one of the deadliest mass shootings in Canadian history. I recognize the profound loss experienced by those in Tumbler Ridge and the Tumbler Ridge community at large, and my heart goes out to the families of Shanda Aviwana Durand, Zoe Benoit, Takeria Lampert, Abel Mawanza, Ezekiel Schofield, Kylie Smith, Jennifer and Emmett Jacobs. I don't know about you, but my hairs on the back of my neck go up when I say these people's names. It's tragic. I cannot begin to imagine the grief you are experiencing, and I wish you the comfort and peace, all the comfort and peace in the world, what I'm sure will be a long journey towards healing. The tragedy in Tumbler Ridge prompted widespread discussions about mental health, public safety, and how future loss of life may be prevented. I've reflected carefully and deeply on the events in Tumbler Ridge, on what led up to them, what took place, and the impact that followed, and continues to do so. That reflection has underscored for me the unique role that the Coroners Service plays in examining deaths openly, thoroughly, and in a way that maintains public confidence. In keeping with that role and recognizing the questions and concerns being raised by the community across British Columbia and throughout the country, I have decided to call an inquest, and I'm announcing that decision today. Pursuant to Section 18 of the Coroners Act, I'm directing a coroner's inquest to publicly review the events that led to 9 individuals losing their lives in Tumbler Ridge on February the 10th. An inquest will provide an open, independent forum to examine the circumstances surrounding these 9 deaths, identify any systemic or procedural issues, and make evidence-based recommendations aimed at preventing similar loss of life in the future. A key area of examination will be how individuals in crisis are identified and supported, including access to mental health supports and services in rural and remote and small communities across British Columbia, such as crisis intervention and wraparound supports. This will include consideration of how mental health services and public safety systems work together to support people experiencing complex mental health crises, including broader issues of community awareness, education and support, and matters relating to gender diversity where relevant to the evidence. The inquest will also review emergency response and coordination, including law enforcement and medical response, communication with families and the school community, and opportunities to strengthen preparedness and response in rural settings. Where relevant, the inquest may also consider other systemic factors that emerge through the evidence that we will hear, including how mental health and public safety systems intersect with firearms oversight, and how information is shared between online platforms, emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, and law enforcement. As Chief Coroner, my mandate to promote public safety and the findings and recommendations from this inquest will inform practice and support safety and well-being in communities across British Columbia and Canada. Before I close, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the bravery and the compassion of those people who were there when these tragic events unfolded, as well as those who were among the first to respond to this crisis. From those who acted selflessly in the midst of immediate danger to try and save lives, to those officers and first responders who arrived within moments to face an unforeseen tragedy. Your courage has been a light in this moment of darkness, and I thank you. I'd also like to thank the British Columbia Coroner Service members who came together so quickly to coordinate efforts and support each other. I am grateful that I'm allowed to work alongside you. From my conversations with Mayor Krakowka and from what I've seen, I know that Tumbler Ridge is a community that will pull together, hold each other up, and support each other through the long days ahead. Events such as these weigh heavily on all involved. Please check in on your friends and family and ask for help when you need it. Our strength is in our compassion and care for each other. Thank you for being here today. and I'm happy to take questions.
We will now move on to the media Q&A portion by starting with questions in the room. If you have a question, please raise your hand and state your name and address. If you have one question, one follow-up. For media on the phone lines, please press 1 to enter the queue.
Thank you for doing this. Would it be standard practice for your office to hold this inquest in Tumbler Ridge?
There is no standard practice to hold inquests in any particular place, but I think it behooves us to hold the inquest where it will do the most good. And I'm talking to various people, including the Premier's office, including the Mayor of Tumbler Ridge, to work out exactly where it will be held. And at present, I do not know where it will be held.
Will your ability to do your work be constrained in any way by police investigation? And will you be able to look into the question of the weapons that were used here and how they were obtained?
Absolutely. As to the second part of what you said, absolutely. We will look at the weapons and how they were obtained, and all that will come out of the inquest. We always use the findings of a police investigation in our coroner's inquest. We tend to conclude our investigation after a police investigation has concluded for that reason. And so we work hand in glove, extracting what we can from what they've gleaned. And we will do so.
Oh, hi. It's Rob Buffin with CTV News. I wanted to get your reaction. The BC Conservatives have said, and I expect they will continue to say, that they would like to see a public inquest rather than a coroner's inquest or a public inquiry, because they view that that would provide more information. What's your response to that?
My response is simple. I'm the Chief Coroner of BC. We will provide what we can through an inquest. It's going to be an independent process. It's a very broad spectrum of stuff that we can look at. It's the terms of reference are really as wide as you want them to be. The circumstances of death we will explore of each one of these deaths, and that's the only thing that confines us really. So if anything is pertinent to the circumstances of death, it doesn't matter what the temporal association was. It could be years before. We can explore it, and we will. So I don't think we will be missing anything that would need a public inquiry thereafter. But I'm not the person that decides on a public inquiry. That's the Premier's office, and if you've got questions about that, you're welcome to ask them.
By way of follow-up, you talked about looking at things in a temporal way that could have predated this tragedy. And one of the things the Premier said last week was that whatever mechanisms used to get more information, as I recall, he'd said that the public will know about the exchanges on ChatGPT involving the shooter. Is that something that you can pledge for people who want to know what the specifics of what we're being engaged in AI? Will the public know that transcript?
I'm not in the business of pledging what will happen at the inquest, because that will happen at the inquest. What I will tell you is anything that occurs in the inquest is open to the public. And so evidence such as that will be played out, and we will investigate in a fulsome fashion. So all of that sort of stuff will be there. I'm not there for sound bites. We are there as a public institution, and our mandate is to do exactly this kind of work. And we do it well, and we will do so in this case.
Hey there, Emily Fagan, CBC. I'm wondering, what is the timeline that you see this inquest happening on? Like, when can we expect it would start, and how long might it last?
Good questions, and sadly, I don't know when it will start. It's dependent on things like the conclusion of a police investigation. It's depending on things like in our own investigative phase ending. And so I don't know where our investigative phase will take us. It's ongoing at present, and it will take as long as it takes. What I can assure you, though, is there is a long list of inquests waiting to happen. We've got somewhat of a backlog, but this will not go into the backlog. This will be, as soon as it is available, all the information is available to hold an inquest, we will hold an inquest. And I promised that to the Mayor of Tumbler Ridge as well when I spoke to him earlier this week. As to how long the inquest lasts, that really depends on the complexity of the issues that are being dealt with. And I cannot think of a more complex set of issues than these. So I expect it will last longer than our usual 1 to 2 weeks, but I don't know how long it will last in total.
And I'm wondering as well, we've talked about the mental health aspect, the guns, AI. Are there any other big questions for you or that you've been hearing that you hope will be answered in this inquest And what impact do you hope this inquest has, for the people affected?
Again, I'm not going to fudge my answer. I'm going to be honest with you and tell you that I'm not going to tell you what the inquest is going to talk about. But everything that everyone is out there speaking about in the media at the moment, and all the things that are concerning people, will be represented in the inquest, because that's what's obvious, and it will be talked about. And it's all about following the evidence that we gather. We deal in facts, and we will have experts there to discuss the facts and explain them to jury. One of the things that an inquest does that nothing else, no other forum can do, is put people that are British Columbians, who are not experts, who are lay people, as members of a jury in charge of, coming up with a verdict and coming up with recommendations. Our job, and the job of my senior inquest counsel, Rolf Warburton, is to make sure that the information, the facts that we've gleaned during our investigative phase are actually portrayed to that jury. The jury then assimilate those facts and come up with recommendations. And as a part of that, they will listen to, experts that get brought along. There will be participants there. I expect, like any other instance, there will be participants from police services. There will be participants from unions that represent various groups, including participants of the families sometimes seek participant status too. So all of these individuals will get their say, and the jury listens to all of that. No other forum gives that level of openness and public accessibility. So that's the real benefit of an inquest.
Hi, Emily Jobeski with Vista News. You were just talking about the jury a bit. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that jury is selected?
So the jury is selected in the same way that any other jury in BC would be selected. So the Sheriff's Department is responsible for doing that, and we do not select the jury. It's exactly the same as any other court proceeding, any other justice system proceeding where a jury is needed.
And I was also wondering, we've talked a bit about mental health. What kind of, processes are in place to ensure that survivors and victims aren't being, re-traumatized throughout this process of the coroners?
It's a really wonderful question. We always try and make sure that when we have these conversations with families, that's the part of our job. It's not just when we do an inquest. Every day when someone dies, we want to make sure that the families aren't traumatized. We want to make sure that we're not causing more harm. So coroners are actually well versed at doing this work, and will do it in the same sort of elegant fashion that they employ every other day. What we will get in this instance, though, I think, and I don't know what the mechanism will look like, but there will be support available for those that are participating and for families that will ensure that that actually happens.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Wolf Deppner, or good morning, Wolf Deppner, Canadian Press. At the beginning of your presentation, you talked about investigating matters related to gender diversity. Can you sort of expand on that? What exactly did you mean by that? And can you sort of give us a rundown of what we might be expecting there? Thank you.
So I'm afraid I can't do that because that's dependent upon the facts that we gleaned during our investigation. I merely said that because that is something that people are concerned about at the moment. So we will employ all the skills that we have to investigate the circumstances of what happened. And if gender diversity was an issue and comes up as an issue in those circumstances, then it will be examined in a fulsome fashion.
Thank you for that answer. And just as a follow-up, obviously we've had a lot of discussion around OpenAI and what knowledge that company had, what it could have prevent this or might have done to prevent this. What, if any, powers does your inquest have when it comes to, for example, securing documents, proprietary documents, documents that companies in the past have said, or private documents that have commercial value and so on? Can you talk about that aspect as well? Thank you.
Yeah, again, a good question, very astute question. I don't consider it to be about powers. I consider it to be about sort of asking for information and having the conversation about why you need it. And what I do know is that when we ask for information, it behooves them to be cooperating. They will cooperate. If you're talking about sort of powers to seize, we have orders to seize that we can use within British Columbia, but we can't use them in other parts of Canada. And we can't use them in other countries. So that's so it's not more. To me, it's not simply about power. It's more about sort of allowing people to share information and encouraging people to share information. When you start talking about power, there's limitations everywhere. Even the federal government would have limitations around what it could gather and what it could get from a company that's registered in a different country.
Are there any more questions in the room? Okay, thank you. Let's move to the phones. Please remember you are limited to one question and one follow-up. And please take yourself off speaker when you are asking the questions. First up, we're going with Jesse Winter from the Globe and Mail.
Yes, hi, thanks very much. Just one clarification. You discussed, in response to a question about timing, I think you said that the inquest would have to take place or would have to begin at the conclusion or after the conclusion of the police investigation. Is that correct?
Really, I guess, to clarify that, the investigation that we hold in the coroner service concludes in the inquest. We usually wait until we've got as much information as we can from any other ancillary investigations that are occurring, especially the police investigation. In this instance, it may not be that important to wait for that, but it depends. I don't know where the police investigation is going at present, and it rather depends on where they take their investigation.
Thanks very much. That's everything.
Do you have a follow-up question? Okay, we will move to Les Lean from Victoria Times.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Bedwan. Have you issued any preservation orders or taken any steps in your official capacity to handle or preserve evidence since February 10th?
I'm afraid I'm not going to get into the investigation that is ongoing at present.
And are you going to personally preside over this inquest? And I'm just wondering about if you could refresh my memory on the powers of a jury. Are there any constraints on their recommendations, or is there anything that would give added force or weight to recommendations?
As to your first question, I don't know who's going to be presiding over this inquest, but it'll be the person that's most appropriate to do so. And if that's me, then it will be me. If it's someone else, it will be someone else. We've got a bunch of capable people that could preside. As to the second part, jury gets all the information played out in front of it. They get to ask questions, and they make recommendations, and the recommendations that they make are non-fault finding. That's the most important thing for us. We are not a fault-finding process, which is a distinction from the justice system. We're an inquest where we sort of try to get to the truth about things and try to see whether we can improve and change what happened so it never happens again.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to Paul Vieira from the Wall Street Journal.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Do you anticipate that this inquest will call from witnesses from OpenAI to discuss safety protocols and why the material, the interactions between the suspect and their chatbot wasn't disclosed to law enforcement officials?
This investigation and the investigative phase is ongoing. We're actually investigating everything that happened in the circumstances of the death. During that investigation, we will glean exactly what happened in all sorts of ways. And we will be able to go back in time and look to see what shaped the individual, the perpetrator, in becoming the person that they were before they did what they did. So I'm answering it in a roundabout fashion because I'm not going to get into details about what will be brought up at the inquest or not. But if it's pertinent to our investigation, and this will be, then I can imagine it will be at the inquest.
Okay. I think we're going to leave it there. I'll let someone else on the line.
Thank you.
That concludes today's event. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
right, I am back. Hang on a second, because the music of that is still playing in my ear. There we go. All right. So there you go. The BC Coroner's Office has declared that they will be doing an inquest. It is not quite the same as a public inquest. It's a coroner's inquest. The difference between the two, I am not sure about. Sorry, I've never had opportunity to investigate different types of inquests, but I can look into that. Let's see. Major questions. Will they investigate the medication the shooter was on? Yes. They will be investigating anything and everything that seems to relate to the case. Will it make a difference? Well, that's the question. As Nova says, we hope so, but you know, it's the same thing with mental health as with the physical health. There is not enough mental health professionals about to meet the need. And that would have to start at the education system. That people would have to. We would need more mental health professionals, just flat out, to be able to meet the needs of the, you know, what we need here in Tumbler Ridge. So, and when there is a freshly minted mental health professional, they'll go to the big centers, and then when the big centers get filled up, they'll go to the medium-sized centers. So they'll wind up in Prince George, maybe Dawson, Fort St. John if we're lucky. It feels like systemic changes need to be made. You know, there was. I can speak. I don't know what it is like in the mental health profession, but for doctors, about 30, 40 years ago, the federal government and the provincial governments decided that, you know, there were too many doctors, so they would reduce the number of chairs that they had at the universities, so they were putting out less doctors, and then as the number of doctors, you know, slowly the attrition rate as the doctors retired, there would be, you know, 4 doctors would retire, 1 doctor would come and fill it. And there was this one moment, like 2006 or something like that, where there was the exact right number of doctors to the number of patients, and then suddenly too many doctors retired, and now we're sort of in a healthcare crisis, not just here in Tumbler Ridge, not just here in northern BC, not just here in BC, not even here in Canada, just like across the world. There's just not enough doctors. So, let's see. Yeah, Marilyn, the issue is not that they're trying to blame OpenAI for, you know, causing this. I think it's the issue that people are wondering is, should they have reported this? And according to OpenAI's current standards, yes, they should have, but 8 months ago, they didn't have those standards. So, but yeah, I'm a little torn as somebody who sits at that junction of where artificial intelligence is a useful tool, but also could be an existential risk. You know, it's tough to sort of go, well, yeah, AI is great until it takes my job. Will I be part of the press pool for this? I do not know, having never, I mean, I got into, as I've said before, I got into reporting to tell stories about local people doing, you know, and local events that affect, you know, us here in Tumbler Ridge. I like writing about the mine and, you know, the new programs that they're doing, or the fact that they've now finally got the certificate to actually mine for the entire mine. And I like writing about people winning awards, and the fact that the I think it's the U18 team is going to be playing for the regionals this upcoming weekend. Those are the things that really appeal to me. So press pools for coroners inquiries. I have no idea. If there is a press pool, I would love to be part of it. If it is happening in Tumbler Ridge, I will definitely be putting my name in to be able to watch, or to whatever extent I can participate, I will. If it's in Dawson Creek or Fort St. John or even Prince George, that's possible. If it's Vancouver, that becomes a little bit more difficult for me to both cover local events and be down there covering the provincial inquiry. So basically, yes, I will be covering this to whatever extent I can. We'll see what that involves. So, let's see. Yep. Do we need do we need to crowdfund a press pool trip for the local newspaper? I have actually, I don't know. So this is the thing, right? Is the trouble is that because there's only me as a writer and photographer, I would gladly go down there and cover it, but it becomes just difficult to balance, writing about this plus anything else that's happening locally. There are things that I can write about when they happen locally, like anything that happens at council. Those are easy to write about because they live stream the council minutes. One of the things that I'm planning on doing actually with this whole video thing is I'm going to start downloading what happened at council and then kind of editing a shortened version, sort of. Last night they talked about how they were going to treat with all the donations that have come in and will be coming in. How are they going to treat that? Well, they talked about that for half an hour, 45 minutes, which can be summed up in, this person says we should do this person says we should do that, and then they said it 5 or 6 or 8 times just to make their point. But ultimately they decided to go with the Northeast BC Community Foundation to administrate the funds. So, but again, we'll see. This has just been announced. Details, there are so many details that are unknown, where is it going to happen? If it happens here, it becomes really easy. The trouble with that is then suddenly Tumbler Ridge gets overrun with reporters again. Not that I'm worried about the reporters coming to town and doing my job. It's just that there were stories of transgressive reporters. I was on Canada Land last week and talked about this, right? There were stories about, unaccompanied minors walking down the street and reporters kind of swarming them. And, yes, maybe that person would like to talk to the press, but I don't think it's a 10-year-old's ability to make that decision. You probably need to talk to their parents. There were stories about apparently when the cell phones, when they got them out of the school and brought them down to the golf course to hand them out to kids, apparently there were reporters in the line pretending to be parents. Right? There's just all these stories about people kind of pushing too far. And I don't want to see that again, right? We've now got a little bit of, by the time this happens, there will be some insulation between the events and the reporters coming back to town. So people will probably be able to speak to this more clear-headed, more, be able to make the decisions more clear-minded. But again, it just felt yucky, and as somebody who and I'm still feeling sort of the blowbacks from this, right? The community center has no media stuck on the door, and I can't. I mean, I can go in there as a community member. I can go in there as the former library board chair, but I can't go in there, you know, I don't know if I'll be able to get in there on Saturday, because Saturday is the skating finals, right? It's the skating carnival, and I don't know if I'll be able to get into there to take pictures. I've sent a note into the district, but we'll see. You went up. Okay. I don't know. Is the Pulitzer even open to Canadians? Is that a U.S. prize? I don't know that I would be have the ability to enter the Pulitzer. Would I want to do? So here's the thing, right? I used to be a member of the BC and Yukon Newspaper Association, but because I didn't. The Tumbler Ridge News, the previous paper, which I was publisher of for a while, and editor and publisher, and then just editor, but it was owned by Lorraine Funk, who passed away. But back then, I was able to be part of the BC Yukon Newspaper Association, and they. One of the nice things about that is when I wrote a really good story, or took a picture that I really liked, I could submit it to them and say, hey, can I win let's see if I can win a contest. Last year, the photo that I took of the after the fire in town, the apartment fire, I took a picture and it was on the front page, and I was like, that could win an award, but I have nowhere to submit it. And I sent a note off to the Canadian Association of Journalists, and they were like, yeah, you're a little late for award season. Anyways, so all that is to say, I have no idea. So Rhonda, here's my biggest ask, and it's always been my biggest ask, is that people assume that because I'm the reporter, I know stuff. And so they don't tell me stuff, and so I don't know stuff, right? I'm both ADHD, which means that even if I do know stuff, half the time I will forget it. I did a big long interview for about the community health, not the healing center, right? And I did, went in there twice. I did photos, and then I came back and did an interview, and then I completely forgot about it until like the paper was 95% done, and I was like, oh crap, I need to fit this in. So I wrote the story and wasn't able to get any pictures or anything in, just because there was so much stuff this week. So if one of the things that Lisa is she does contract ad sales, but she will before the paper comes out, she'll send me a list of things that are happening around town, just so I know about them. I will, half the time I won't write about them, or probably more than half the time, because I've either got other things that I'm writing about, or they're, they just don't sing for me or whatever. But yeah, so if people are able to send me notes about things that are happening that might influence, that people in Tumbler Ridge would care about, I would love to have people just sort of send me notes. I would love to be doing every day. I would love to have hey, Tumbler Ridge, it's Trent in the morning, and here's your 5 things you need to know about what's happening in town. So yeah, if you want to pass on stuff, you don't need to write this stuff. You just need to even alert me to it, and maybe pass me on to people. So there we go. Let's see. We're getting a little spicy in the comments there, people. Jordan, there was a press conference by the head of the BC Coroners Service announcing that they would be doing a investigation. I'm sure that this has been mentioned Jerry Lynn, if you're still about, yes, they made the announcement. There will be a coroner's inquest, which is different than a public inquest, which is what Larry and Bob have been calling for. How much different, I don't know. Like I say, this is not something that I, as a local journalist, specialize in. So I'll be tracking that down. I think. All right. Let's see. All right, which brings me to the end of the comments. Okay, so I'm going to go back for the people who've been here since the beginning. I'm going to go back to the beginning and sort of pass on the things that I had mentioned, just as your 5 things you need to know about Tumbler Ridge today. If you have already seen that, I'll start with the last one that I missed, and then I'll go backwards so you can sort of fade off as where you came. So things to know. Tumbler Ridge Town Council voted yesterday to change a flag policy so that they could keep the flags at half-mast on all public buildings for 30 days, which, if my math is correct, will be March 12th. Though I am a writer, not a chronophile, so if I get that wrong, I apologize. It's somewhere in there. It'll be the 12th or the 13th or the 11th or somewhere like that. Let's see. Council is planning on entering into a service agreement with Northeast BC Community Foundation to administer the monetary donations received by the District of Tumbler Ridge, or that will be received in the future, related to the shooting on February 10th. What that means, I don't fully know yet, and nor does Council. They're still in the process of negotiating terms and whatnot. So the Northeast BC Community Foundation, I believe, they set up a fund to receive, or set up a bucket to receive funds for Tumbler Ridge, and then sort of came to Tumbler Ridge and says, okay, now we got this bucket. Do you want us to administer it? We'll see. Anyways, Trades Trailer should be arriving today. This was announced that it was coming up by the school district last week. It's a really pretty thing. It's coming from the Nicola Valley Institute of Technology, which is the Indigenous university here in BC. It's basically 2 trailers that kind of sit in a T. One is sort of where you go and do all the grinding and cutting and stuff. The other side is where all the workstations are. It should be, if it isn't here, and I didn't see it when I drove by, but I wasn't really paying attention. If it isn't here, it should be arriving today. I mentioned that Bob Zimmer and one of his compatriots, whose name I forget, joined Larry Neufeld and the provincial Conservatives in calling for a public inquiry. I don't know what the difference is between a public inquiry and a coroner's inquiry. We will finish that out, or I will figure that out as time goes by. I mentioned that Abel Jr. was buried yesterday in Zambia. Technically it was today, but because they're on the other side of the world, it happened kind of late yesterday. But it was supposed to be on Tuesday, according to the notes that I saw. And finally, yay to the rest of the BC for finally catching up to us and not doing the daylight savings time, standard time, daylight savings time, standard time. So that's sort of the big things you need to know about the things you need to know about the news today here in Tumbler Ridge. That part was supposed to be quick and brief in 5 minutes. I'm at 50 minutes now. Most of that was around the coroner's inquiry. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to me, publisher@tumblerridgelines.com. Send me notes on the Tumbler Ridge Lines Facebook page. I mean, you could call me, but I probably won't answer the phone if I don't recognize your number. But texting is fine. I'm not going to give that number out publicly because I've learned not to do stuff like that on the interwebs. Just, okay, I know I said I was done. I posted a story about scams, scam fundraisers, and how somebody in Chetwynd discovered that if you do a search for Tumbler Ridge fundraisers in a place like Australia, it actually you don't see the same ones as you do here in Tumbler Ridge. Like they've sort of geo-fenced out Canada, right? So, and this person was going through and flagging fake fundraisers in Australia. But I published that story online, and immediately I started getting all these comments saying, if you've been scammed, contact me. I am the representative for the UN Anti-Scam Association. My email is unantispamassociation@gmail.com. And I'm like, wow, this sounds official. I was thinking about leaving the person's post there and just kind of striking out the contact information, but and then putting a comment. See, it's like, see, look, but I figured people might decide to call them anyways, or send them an email. So I just deleted them and threw them out. All right, that's it for today. I am going to. Okay, Rhonda, I think, is mocking me. So I'm gonna go now and process this. So again, if you have any questions, thoughts, story ideas are lovely, especially things that I can do tomorrow as sort of a Today in Tumbler Ridge, except it'll be tomorrow because I've already done today's Today in Tumbler Ridge. And we'll see. Okay. I know, ADHD. I am going to try and start to see if I can find advertisers or advertising to sort of support this as well. There are people out there who love the paper. There are people out there who go, there's a paper in Tumbler Ridge? So having multiple ways to talk to people, I think is a good thing. So I'm going to start looking for advertisers. If you know anybody who'd be interested, feel free to mention it to them. Also, note the shirt. Yes. Yeah, I'll talk about that tomorrow. All right. That's it. I will let you go. Good day.